Peace and welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Folks, we got a lot of great stuff to talk about. Let's have this first conversation where President Biden's approval rating among young people has been dwindling since he's been in office. We'll talk about the latest data. Also, let's talk about should whites and others be allowed to host a Juneteenth event. In Arkansas, there is a big kerfuffle about what some white residents are doing for Juneteenth, and Black Twitter is certainly not with it. Also, folks, today marks the 30th anniversary of the Rodney King verdict and the aftermath of that verdict. We have been streaming live. Black Star Network has been on the ground all throughout the day, giving you the latest and showing you what the city is doing to commemorate this very, very important date. We're going to share with you some excerpts from that day. And then later we check in with entrepreneur Tamika Peoples to talk about her efforts to bring seed to shirt and bridging the gap in manufacturing. All of that is happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, as the city in Los Angeles, we're first. Let me just say we're going to have a conversation about what's going on with President Biden and youth voters. But first, we wanted to just give you a little sneak peek of some of the things and activities that have been happening in Los Angeles as today marks the 30-year anniversary since the Rodney King trial. If you remember, folks, 30 years ago, back in 1992, Rodney King was a Black man who was beaten brutally. One of the big pivotal cases where we saw police brutality being filmed. He was beaten brutally on film by a number of cops, 6 police officers in Montclair. In Los Angeles. And so today, the Black Star Network has been on the ground covering a host of events and activities. And later we'll talk and we'll be able to try to show you a little bit of what happened at the press conference. But I wanted to kind of give you a sneak peek of a bus ride that folks have been taking to look at what has happened over in Los Angeles these past 30 years. Take a look at this.
That we just passed was the old hospital that was founded by several African-American doctors. It's now being turned into housing, and on our left back there. And then on the right here is the Ross Medical Plaza. So some of the African-American doctors got together. This was one of the first developments of African-Americans in the city around healthcare. And so Dr. Leon Banks, Dr. Donald Stovall, and a number of other doctors from that period. If you grew up in this community, you either went to Dr. Banks as your pediatrician. If you were going to have a baby, you went to Dr. Donald Stovall, the women did, and several other physicians in this building up here on the right. Now it's labeled Underwood University, but it was a great asset for many years to the community. A little bit about Community Build. We're a legacy African-American organization. This year also marks our 30th year in operation.
That's right.
I took on as CEO, actually, this month is my 3rd year as CEO. We've grown from 3.2 million in revenue programs to 7.5 in the last 18 months. And I know sometimes he thinks I just say this, but I could not do what I do without people like Michael Lawson supporting and lifting me up, because this is not easy work, especially during this pandemic. I lost 5 people in the last year, the first one being my dad. So it's a very emotional time for me to go through that. But we do a broad spectrum of services. We launched also, Urban League is a part of this, as well as several other organizations, the Community Response System of South LA, which became the safety net for urban America. We together collaborated on distributing over 30 million pounds of food to date. 32 nonprofit organizations coming together, thousands of computers for the kids, teaching instructors how to teach in a Zoom environment, We now have an education committee, public policy committee, health committee, mental health committee, with that it continues to grow. And that's the CRSSLA. You can go to crssla.org to find out more. It is a project of community build. However, it is owned by the members. And I didn't want our brand to supersede the importance of collaboration. So that's why we created a new brand for it. Very, very good work. And we were able to get folks that never worked together to work together during this time and provide some leadership. So I refer to this as the Issachar factor. You know, in the book of Chronicles, they talk about the tribe of Issachar, the men that understood the times and what to do. That's what this leadership is all about, is just being ahead and doing what we need to do.
And Community Build was there at the beginning. Everybody who was there at the beginning, raise your hand. 30 years ago. I mean, that's significant. Sweet Alice, amen. Yeah. And all this was, by the way, affected, burned, damaged, looted, everything on the street. Stevie Wonder has a studio. It's not. I think we just passed it. It's hidden, but it's a studio where he does all his recordings right around here somewhere. I think we just passed it, but there's so much going on here. But all this was life just stopped. And it was no easy feat putting it back together. So what Community Build has done and others is completely significant. And being around 30 years later is no joke, and growing.
Yes. So tonight we'll be also featuring those who led the gang troops. We're having a special dinner for that group of individuals and honoring them for the work they did 30 years ago and continue to do I don't refer to people as gang members. I call them street culture involved so that they stay out of the way of the RICO Act by not affiliating. As you all remember, a couple of years ago in what was called the Jungle Baldwin Village, 900 people were arrested. Over half of them hadn't been affiliated in 10 years, but they went to prison because they were holding up peace signs and pictures and still claiming to be a part of something. So I tell them, don't even affiliate. So this is the work we do. During COVID, we helped 2,700 people find employment. 88 people went from the prison door to our door and to work. And we were able to help them fund their housing. And as we come into Koreatown, very important part of Los Angeles, it continues to grow. If you don't know the Korean community history, it's very close to the African American community. So the Korean community originally came to America because America is their missionary field. A lot of people don't know that. And so they came here. As you know, there's many Christian churches within the Korean community, and they made America because they saw the need for missionaries to be here. And Korea is one of the largest missionary groups in the world. And I'll have you speak a little more about that.
This is the great.
Good morning, everyone. This, I believe, is this Western? Are we on Western?
We just turned
Olympic. Okay, great. So this is where actually Koreans in the 60s started to congregate. So just like everyone else, Asians were also discriminated. And pretty much they used to live on like Slauson, Adams, Western, and Vermont. And when the law released people, I guess that's the right word, they started to congregate on Olympic, and all the stores and churches played a very significant role. Even to this day, 75% of Korean Americans are connected to the church. And they actually send out the greatest number of missionaries after the United States as well. So God plays a central role, but really the church has served as a anchor and as a service for helping Korean American immigrants to assimilate to American life. You're here on Olympic, and you'll see some of the establishments and restaurants as well. And so right now, Koreatown is the main piece is Western and Vermont.
Folks, that was just a sneak peek of the stream that we started earlier today, Black Star Network. We were on the ground in Los Angeles. Again, this is for the 30th anniversary of the Rodney King trial. And what you heard was just the CEO of Community Build. This is an organization that is dedicated to the revitalization of South LA, young people and economic development program. And as you can hear, the CEO saying that has been the work that they've been doing for 30 years. And of course, building partnerships with members of other communities like the Korean community. So we'll get back to that. But I wanted to just let you know that Black Star Network, we've been streaming. You can certainly watch the replay. You can certainly tune in. But that has been happening, and we will certainly share more of what's been said and what's been discussed in the next hour. But I want to bring in our culture crew member, Shaquaya McKenzie, who is an educator and who is an activist, and she is also a future attorney who has been joining us here on Fridays. Shaquaya, good afternoon. How are you this afternoon?
Hey, bro, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We're going to get back to that part about what's been happening 30 years ago in Los Angeles. It was a pivotal moment on so many levels, from police brutality to filming to seeing that in a modern setting. We've seen those images before, but to see that back in 1992, it just shook up the world. And then certainly the aftermath of that on that unfortunate incident. So we will certainly talk about that. But I wanted to start the conversation around what's happening with President Biden. President Biden is again on shaky ground, Shaquaya, because apparently the numbers for him among youth voters is not strong at all. He is still, I mean, we talked about the fact that his numbers among adults is one thing, but for young people, it's not good at all. And this is all according to a Harvard youth poll that they put out just a couple of days ago. And I want to share with you folks what the Washington Post said about this poll. Check this out, Keenan. Let's put that quote on the screen. Thank you, sir. The Post reported that Biden was informed that his approval among young people had dropped significantly. And while many intend to vote in the fall and still lean Democratic, they're not encouraged by the state of the country or the ability of the political system to solve problems. The bad news doesn't stop there. According to a new Daily Coast Civics poll, they find that a remarkable 78% of voters between the ages of 18 and 34 agree that President Biden hasn't delivered on his promises, far higher than Americans overall. Wow, 78%, Shaquaya.
Yeah.
And let me share with you what the Washington Post said, and what, according to this youth poll, what they said from Harvard. The two big issues that the president has yet to deliver on, which is climate change and, come on, you know what the other one is.
Right. Hello.
Okay. Student loan debt.
Student loan debt is the most, of course, in the minds of
student loan debt, 18 to 34.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Student loan debt. What's your take of this? I mean, and people are saying, people often say, well, if young people don't vote, it doesn't necessarily matter.
It absolutely
young people
matters.
came out in record numbers in 2018 for the last midterm election. But this sounds like the president is on real shaky ground, Shaquaya.
Young adults, the demographic of young adults absolutely transform the outcomes of elections. We've seen it in 2018. We saw it in 2008 and 12, namely with the Barack Obama presidency. But we know it as it relates to the Democratic Party, it's the turning point. That demographic shifts that which inevitably is a success or a failure for the Democratic Party. And my take on where we stand, because I am a part of this electorate block, we there are things that the Biden administration has done that was a part of their platform and campaign promise, but unfortunately it doesn't reverberate with our age group, and namely in needing to really jump on the issues related to the pandemic and the economy, infrastructure bill. Those things will have a resonating effect over the years, but it's nothing imminent that my demographic, that millennials, can fill. And as it relates to student loan debt, voting rights, and climate change, which is at the forefront of the minds of those who are going, as we are, at the helm of taking leadership in the next generation, these things may not be of the utmost importance for current current Democratic leaders such as Nancy Pelosi, Biden. I think that they, of course, would want to have had movement, but we know Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema has been a barrier to that, which much progressive change could be made. And maybe some other Democrats, certainly the entire Republican Party, right, has been a staunch blockade to that which they wanted to achieve. But they've not been vocal, in my opinion. There's not been enough rallying and advocacy around that which they are trying, or that which they have tried to do. I think our last segment last Friday, where the press secretary, Jen Psaki, actually talked about the student loan debt forgiveness, situation in terms of where they are and what is up for consideration. But all in all, when you look and pan the big picture of issues that are being responded to with an imminent sense of urgency, like the war in Ukraine, you have millennial frustration over how we can identify or, find resources in the billions to aid in the war across the world, when there are issues here at home hurting average Americans, hurting that of us which are trying to, by all means, through our ambition, through our educational attainment, our position to be living or having a better quality of life and be better positioned for upward mobility, but we're not seeing it. And we're not experiencing the change that we seek to have. And so the Biden administration has a lot of work to do in terms of their messaging, in terms of their actual legislative success and being able to move things across the aisle. And then definitely with connecting on a grassroots level with the millennial and Gen Z population.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you, Shaquay. And I think that, I'm wondering how serious do you think that this president and even Vice President Kamala Harris, how serious do you think they're taking this data?
I presume that they are taking this data seriously.
Yeah.
But just knowing or having insight, I can't say I inherently know as if I'm a part of any campaign, local or national. But I presume and know based on observation and insight from those who have been friends who have been involved in national organizing committees, and even friends who work in Washington, D.C., if not near the White House, on the Hill. And I just know that there is consideration to it, but they much more depend upon the older millennial generation, those who are 35 and above, in terms of where they focus their legislative, agenda and wanting to impact issues that hit middle-class America. I think that they know that there is an issue with, and they're out of reach with the younger generation. But I don't see anything that's telling, and I don't hear anything that's telling about what is actually going to be done to bridge the gap.
And I think that that's where the rubber got to meet the road, right? Like there has to be a different strategy that the administration, that the president, vice president has to employ in order to garner this, because you're talking about 18 to 34, 18 to 29. This is what Harvard was looking at. They're looking at 18 to 29-year-olds, and they're saying that they're on that group is on track to match 2018's record-breaking youth turnout in a midterm election this November, and prefer Democratic control by 55% versus 34%. Now, here's the thing: the poll also finds that 59% of young Black Americans, 43% of young Asian Americans, and 37% of young Hispanic Americans feel, quote unquote, under attack a lot in America. Nearly half of LGBTQ youth feel under attack a lot in America. When it comes to student loans, 85% of young Americans favor some form of government action or student loan debt, but only 38% favor total debt cancellation. So when we're looking at that, you have these these demographics, Black youth, Latino youth, and Asian youth, all minority youth groups, right? And then, of course, you got to add LGBTQ youth, which can be racially diverse, right? So you got these four demographics that really, when combined, and I know we like to chop it up and break it down into racial categories, but when those young people combined, that means that they are become a much more stronger base. And just like in business, if you're able to get a young person at the age of 18, 21, 25, right? You're able to speak their language, to speak to their interests. The likelihood of them staying with you, quote unquote, as a member of that particular party is higher. It's like in business, it's like the brand. You know what I mean? Like if people feel close to your business brand, then they're going to stay with you. They're going to tell their children about your brand. They're going to tell their friends about your brand. So we're at that place, and I'm concerned that even though these numbers are very high, that the administration aren't hearing it, aren't going to be taking this data, important and seriously enough to say, you know what, let me try to figure out some different strategies. Let's make sure that we do check off one or two agenda items for these groups, so that way we can make sure that they so they can know that they're supported. That's my big concern.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you about that concern, Farajii. I think, but the buy-in of the millennial or Gen Z generation is lackluster because the quote unquote strategies that they utilize to try to appease certain voting blocs, such as African Americans, I'm using the example of Joe Biden fulfilling his campaign promise of appointing a Black woman to the Supreme Court. They just don't swing the pendulum when it comes to those younger generations.
No.
Does it have impact? Do they care? Absolutely, but they don't feel that they don't feel the immediate or imminent sense of change in their lives. It's more symbolic than it is transformative for the issues that affect them on a day-to-day basis. And I too agree with you, as I said before, that they're not, I fear not in trying to always castigate what is the best thing to do, because I can only imagine being in office for 4 years, looking at a spectrum of issues of that which I'm trying to, hack at or take an approach to remedy, but very strategically knowing the long game, in that you do want re-election, and that you do have to, I think, as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, or, really specifically Joe Biden, given his moderate background, thought that he would come in with some ground to gain with leverage and with the Republican Party or with more moderate Democrats such as Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. And there has not been a sense of, once you figure out something doesn't work, you switch the game, you switch the strategy. It doesn't feel like there's a really, significant change in strategy in terms of galvanizing the grassroots support to, raise advocacy, raise visibility, raise voice in some issue, position younger people for leadership in either the White House and or around the campaign as they start to gear up for midterm elections, and knowing the crucial role that midterm elections play in terms of keeping power in the Congress and what can be made possible from that. It just doesn't seem like they're moving their chess pieces in the right direction. And so I try not to be too judgmental, or I like to be fair in thinking about how quick time moves, and recognizing that they have done some things. I think it's important that we always give respect to that which has been done, but what we're talking about right now is what has not been done. And I just don't know if they see it like we see it, and if they're going to move how we believe they should move. I personally am a little confused at times about what Kamala Harris's position is, which I think she should have more of a vocal position and more leverage. I know that she's been, she's stepped up when it came to HBCUs more recently when it came to the threat of bombings. And she's appointed, she's worked to appoint different public influencers or people of influence to the White House committee that is focused on providing more opportunities for HBCUs. But when it comes to, in general, being able to relate to and address the younger generation, I think she has a lot more skin in the game than Joe Biden ever could as an almost 80-year-old white man, and she doesn't use it as much as she should.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the other part of that with her is, to set herself apart. I mean, she's still a young woman in this, right? And she was able, at the beginning of this whole thing, there was a lot of momentum around her to see some real innovation, and I'm surprised personally. I'm really surprised that there hasn't been, some not a youth commission, but a youth-oriented board, or I guess for lack of a better word, we'll have to say commission. But there hasn't a youth commission to get young people civically and politically engaged. I mean, beyond just what the normal thing is, right? Like for example, as we're still talking about police brutality, we know that a lot of those shootings and killings have affected young people, between 18 to 40 years old. Why not bring in, like you mentioned, more influencers, more thought leaders, more activists? You know what I mean? Really creating this place and this space for the voice of the next generation to be on this. When it comes to student loan debt, why not look at this not just from a legislative point of view, but a cultural point of view, where there is some discussion about, okay, do you know that if you relieve $50,000 in student debt, how that would affect not just Black students, but Asian students, Latin American students, Latinos, and poor white students.
White students, right?
You know what I'm saying? Like this will help. Like the conversations are real different, and I'm just not seeing that level of innovation that I was hoping and I was expecting to see.
I'm actually seeing the contrary. What was a flag for me this past year was when Simone Sanders stepped down from her position.
Right.
Right. That was one of the only young Black leaders. And I'm not, again, I hate to try to position things as if, this is how it should be. But I thought it was a very smart move for them to appoint Simone Sanders to Joe Biden's campaign. I thought that she was instrumental in applying strategy or providing insight into strategy that would affect and actually relate to the millennial generation or younger generations. I think that when she stepped down, it was indicative and telling that the powers that be that surround Joe Biden were essentially suppressing maybe innovative opportunities or requests for things to be done out of the vice president's office. And it just doesn't seem that there is a marriage between the leadership, the White House administrative leadership that surrounds Joe Biden and the White House administrative leadership that surrounds Kamala Harris. There seems to be a disjointed chemistry in terms
we know
of,
it's disjointed.
We know that for a fact, right?
You know what I'm saying? There have been reports about it. They're not on the same page.
They're not
on the same page.
I hate that they're suppressing Kamala Harris to a degree where she's unrecognizable in the way that she was running for presidency and even in her position as a senator. It's like they're extinguishing the only fire and power that they have to be able to relate to that, which I think will, again, swing the pendulum in their direction for midterms and for the next presidential election. I don't even like that there has been this teasing out that the media has been able to do with Joe Biden and constantly questioning whether he's going to run again or not. I think if there was room for Kamala Harris to emerge as a forerunner, they just need to keep everything sealed. But he keeps
That's a good point.
Teasing out that he may run again, and therefore that doesn't give our generation much to look forward to because we're tired of the status quo. And with all due respect to Joe Biden's career and that all he has been instrumental in playing a role with for progressive change, he also represents that which is the status quo. He is a moderate, white, old man. And so, there's
and
not
he
much.
overshadows the vice president.
Oh, absolutely.
he overshadows
Absolutely.
the vice president,
Right.
right? He
Right.
overshadows.
We knew what game was being played when he selected her as vice president. The same game that was played when he appointed Ketanji Brown to the Supreme Court. It's
Yeah.
Again, I fear not trying to dress anybody's actions in judgment, but tokenism is what it is, and you can see it clear when it happens.
Well, let me just say this as we wrap up this part of the conversation, Shawed. The big thing is that young people in this country are looking for change. They're looking for dramatic change, drastic change, right? Because that's what the Democrats had promised, right? The Democrats that are working on Capitol Hill, also the younger ones, are saying we need some dramatic change. And it is the moderate politician that tries to slow down the momentum. And folks, you can say I'm wrong, but there's always, you can find somebody in history when people want to say, all right, we're going on your mark, get set, go. When people want to hit the ground running, the moderate has always said, well, let's think about this. Mm-hmm. Let's make sure that we got full consensus. Mm-hmm. Let's not bully our way into creating this piece of legislation or bully our way into policy. And you know, timing is everything. There is, as I read in The Art of War by Sun Tzu, timing is everything. There is a time where you are very tepid, but then there's also times where you just, boom, you are like a strike of lightning. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So and I don't think that the White House understands the rhythm of the time.
Well, quite frankly, Democrats don't understand that.
Yeah.
The Republicans understand that very well.
Yeah. They understand it. They jump on it. The Democrats are still, which is still the Big Tent party. And like I said, a lot of people are still lean to a Democratic view, but I think they take that for granted. Mm-hmm. I think that the real party that this country should be looking at is the independent party, because so many folks are saying, hey, you know what? I'm not all Democrat. I'm not all Republican. I'm independent. Yeah. And I understand. Yeah. And a lot of young people are sitting in that space right there, right? A lot of young people are looking at both parties and trying to figure out what America they want to be a part of. And I think that's the important part. The other thing is that if you take a page out of President Obama's playbook, you got to be in those spaces. Like President Obama, he was youthful, even though he's not a young man, quote unquote, but he had a youthful energy to him that he can be in those spaces, whether it's in hip hop, whether it's in Hollywood, whether it's in, say it again.
Yeah, Obama was just as prolific of a cultural icon as he was.
That's what exactly, icon. And he's still there.
Exactly,
he's still there.
And it's very hard. It's it is not something that is easy for any politician to venture in and have space in or to make space for. And I do agree. I wish somebody. I thought Kamala Harris was on to take in a page out of the playbook.
Right.
I'd love to connect and say there are people from both sides jumping ships. I'm a registered independent. I am not a registered Democrat. Very much so, because I cannot completely align with the strategy, the approach, with the ideology. What I see is that there are gatekeepers in both parties, both Democrat and Republican, for those who are conservative, moderate to more progressive or more radically conservative. And what I see on the Republican Party side is that there is the gatekeepers against those who are more radical. There's just not enough manpower, and therefore the more radical block of their voting base has taken over, with Trump's help, the tyranny and the cacophonous noise that is what they have going on over there. But on the Democratic side, the gatekeepers, the moderate to conservative Democrats, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Steny Hoyers, they are very good at being gatekeepers against the progressive younger bloc of Democrats, and they really just kind of need to step out the way a little bit, in my opinion.
A little bit, just a tad bit,
just a little bit,
just a little bit. I'm not saying. And look,
right, we're going to be anchored by your service, your insightful knowledge of the service that you've had, but we need that energy. We need that leadership.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's shift gears. as we jump into another conversation about Juneteenth. As we know, the holiday, this new federal holiday, will be coming up very soon. But the question is that people are asking online is that should other folks, white people and others, be given the space to host Juneteenth events? This is coming after a situation in Little Rock, Arkansas, where 3 white officials was trying to host a Juneteenth event, but didn't cut the mustard. So we're going to have that conversation. And of course, we'll continue to bring you up to date on some of the activities in Los Angeles for the 30th anniversary of the Rodney King verdict. So stay with us. A lot to get to here on The Culture, only on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig?
Folks, Juneteenth is coming soon, and many folks across the country are preparing activities and ways to acknowledge the end of slavery, the legal end of slavery. And so it leaves open the door, who can do what? Well, in Little Rock, Arkansas, there was a group of folks that decided to show their support, I guess, for Juneteenth by hosting a celebration that they call a soul food market. Take a look at this, folks. A Juneteenth soul food festival and market being hosted and featured hosts by Rex Nelson, Heather Baker, and David Bazell at the War Memorial Stadium in Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing about this. We can go and Keena, keep this. I want you to keep this post on, or keep this post up for me, please, brother. We can go into the conversation about what white people can't do and what black people should be doing and all of that. And when this was posted on Twitter, of course, Black Twitter went crazy because the conversation was about gentrification of black holidays. But for me, it opens up the conversation from a different angle. Instead of us getting upset, if there were an opportunity for white people and other people to celebrate black holidays, should they be given the space to do that? That's my big question. Thank you so much, Keenan. That's my question. Should they be given space to do that? And Shaquaya, I want to get your take on this because Black Twitter was not happy. But I know, I get it. And people are like, oh, soul food. Like one of the criticism of this is like, you're going to host a Juneteenth event, an event that talks about the end of slavery. And the best way you can celebrate it is to do it in a market style where black folks were sold as slaves. Okay, you missed the mark on that. Then it's like, oh, you're going to do a Juneteenth event that talks about black people and black history, but soul food, but you don't have any black faces to be a part of that celebration. So I'm not going to get into that because that's an easy conversation to get to, right? That's like, oh man, look at crazy white people. Oh, okay. That's too easy. I'm not going to get into that. But I think that we should get into the discussion that if you have well-meaning white people who have good intentions, well-meaning Latino people that may have good intentions, or Asian people that say, hey, you know what? I think there should be a Juneteenth event in my town or in my city. Do we have the right? And I'm saying we as black folk, do we have the right to say, no, you can't host that? Because there's no Juneteenth National Committee. There's no black group that owns the rights to the celebration of Juneteenth. So if somebody outside of the black community wants to do something to show that they are, quote unquote, an alignment with this idea of Juneteenth being celebrated, should they?
I think they should. And Farajii, I have to apologize because my Cocker Spaniel Cookie wants to get in on the conversation.
Oh, so no. Tell Cookie needs to chill out.
Jumping in.
That's all good.
Jumping in. So, the commemoration of the end of slavery, the formal end of slavery, not that which was implied through the passing of the Emancipation Proclamation, is rightfully, and as we discussed before, and it possibly becoming an observed holiday that you can receive a paid leave from your job for, should respectfully be celebrated by anybody who is inclined to take up the celebration. Now, though there is not an organizing committee, or there will never be a referendum upon which anybody can, go to refer to in terms of what is the proper way to celebrate it, and perhaps that needs to be created. But because of the open-ended nature of how anything can be celebrated in this country, I do think it is incumbent upon well-meaning white folk who would like to celebrate Juneteenth to confer with any respectful and or well-positioned arms, that I'll say organizations or businesses, that they would, they should be inclined to want to partner with people of color for whatever it is that, and however it is they seek to celebrate. When I look at that flyer, I'm not immediately opposed and or offended by the idea of a soul food market, but the issue that, as you already regarded, and people will take resonance, I'm sure Black Twitter has taken resonance upon, is seeing white faces, is knowing that the concept of soul food itself was born out of the establishment of slavery, in that people had to make something out of nothing and made it good. Right? We made it well. And therefore I question, are the vendors Black owned businesses? Are there Black organizers of this event? Are there, and if it's not, and it's just a commemoration of the end of slavery, and they want to celebrate with soul food and have a marketplace with any type of business not particularly Black owned, I question then who is going, like, what Black people are going to go into this space and challenge that? Because it's one thing to be offended and just have a lot of discussion or rouse, rabble rouse online about, but how are we holding people accountable, and how are we doing that in a congenial sense of wanting to actually see progress made, not just to create, not just out of contention, not wanting to stoke issue with things just to have divisiveness, but how are we going to learn these folks? How older Black people be like, let me learn something. How are we going to learn these folks something, right? What is going to be the process by which we hold people accountable, and how do we assert our and advocate for how it is we want this holiday to be celebrated? If let me take another, you used St. Patrick's Day the other day, so I'll use this example. If Black people decided that they wanted to have an all-out go for green cookout on St. Patrick's Day, and we celebrated by not, acknowledging any aspect of Irish culture, but we just invoked what we wanted, who could say anything to us, right? They could say something to anybody who is Irish, who's affiliated with anyone who'd be a part of that celebration, could say something, but do the participants willingly have to change what it is they're going to do? No. So it just is a matter of constantly informing that which we want to be the culture and that which we want to be synonymous with this celebration. We have the opportunity to consecrate that in our advocacy, in our outreach, rather than just rabble rousing online. It's real funny. I love it. I love it when Black Twitter gets up in arms, but let's really talk about what needs to be done so that we don't see this and repeat, and therefore, can kind of lessen the blow when we.
And see, that's the place that I'm at, Shaquille. That's the place that I'm at. I'm at this place it's interesting, it's funny, it's good fodder for social media. Look at this, they crazy and all that. But personally, I'm not moved by that.
Yeah.
I'm not moved by, us making mockery.
Right.
On both sides, whether it's Black folks or white people. I'm not moved by that. What I'm moved by is just the fact that, okay, if we're going to be in a progressive place in this country, then guess what? White people are going to have to be a part of the conversation. And I know that people have said, well, we could do for ourselves. And that's true. That's true. But if somebody has violated you, and I'm just saying on a personal level, somebody has violated you, do you just say to yourself, they violated me, not put any responsibility on the person that has violated you to make amends for the violation? So you completely remove them from the equation of trying to do right by you. And you just say, well, they violated me, but I ain't going to bring them into the conversation. So therefore,
it's childish.
I'm going to just let it go. Oh, I'm going to forgive myself for being violated.
Null. It's such a null attitude.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. Like if we're talking about having very real conversations, and you said this, and I mean having very real conversations. I'm not, because we make mockery of race relations, right? But then at the same time, when things don't go according to the way Black folks want to go, now we up in arms and we emotional. Right. I'm tired of doing that.
No, absolutely.
I'm trying to get to a place that's like, okay, y'all want to do a Juneteenth?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna pull up.
Come on, pull up.
I'm gonna pull up.
Now, are you gonna be serious about it?
I will pull up, and I'm not pulling up with a group of my homies to protest and just
whip your ass. I'm not doing that.
We're not. That is, I think that, which I think sometimes we don't talk about enough as a community aloud, and especially on platforms like this, which we're gifted and have the opportunity to do. Thank you, Roland. We are oftentimes reinforcing the divisiveness, right? And that we're not addressing it with a certain level of couth that can be received, or therefore we're not conveying and keeping on with, like I think that we have historically, maybe at times when there are situations like this, cultural events like this, there may be an approach where we're trying to come in respectful, polite, strategic, tactful. But then on the other side of that, there is the up in arms, right? Like you said, it's the raucous. So I do not always see the levied effort to consistently chomp down these issues. I see more frustration and respectful to that which we experience all the time, grievances on so many different levels, disrespect on so many different levels as it pertains to our identity, our culture, our history. I understand the frustration that boils out, but in a situation like this, like literally in this example with this Little Rock, Arkansas Juneteenth Soul Food Festival and Market, it's nothing to pull up and say, we heard about this event and we wanted to see how it was done. Can we speak to the organizing committee or chairperson? And then you can have a sound conversation about what informed the event, who was involved, who was the targeted audience, what exactly is the desired outcome of the event. If it's determined that it's only supposed to be, opportunity for businesses to make money or to raise their visibility in terms of the restaurants that are serving in this festival and market, then that can be understood. But if there's another historical, cultural, if there's another desired outcome that's supposed to impact culture, then that can be discussed and partnership can happen. I've seen it. Oftentimes, let me not even say oftentimes, sometimes white people just do things to do things. They're not trying to offend. And therefore, we have to, kind of slip in and say, hey, what's going on? What exactly is the intent of this? And when we can reason and find whether it is intent to, respect or regard that which is related to us and our history and our culture, then we can, slide in what it is that we intend. If we recognize that there is intended disrespect or disregard, then we can cause all the noise we want.
I mean, I get it. And if this is supposed to be an ally moment, Chikway, you know what I mean? Like, if you want to be an ally to the struggle, to the movement of liberation that have been impacting Black and brown communities, particularly Black communities, for hundreds of years, if you want to be an ally to that, it requires some very strategic partnership. It requires some openness. I mean, there are a number of things that has to happen. It can't just be, I'm going to take over the event, or I'm going to just take over the event. But here's on our side. On our side, we haven't codified any group to serve as the group or the coalition of groups to look at it. We still go back and forth about Kwanzaa. You know what I'm saying? Now we got Juneteenth. And there hasn't been any particular for Kwanzaa, there has been what you should be doing for the 7 days and everything. And there's still room for your family, for you and your family to add your spin on it. But for Juneteenth, and we talked about this, we haven't codified what should be done. Now, if that comes from a Black organization to say, hey, look, as we celebrate this, let's do this. Let's reflect. Let's have story time. Let's go do this. Like, if certain things are codified, then that might be a different thing. But we can't get mad at anybody who wants to take a federal holiday and run with it the way they want to run with it, because we haven't concretized, we haven't codified how we want that holiday to be celebrated, right? And I know it might sound weird because you normally don't ask people. Like, when it comes down to the Chinese New Year, right? You don't just dress up in any type of garment and be like, I'm celebrating the Chinese New Year. You look it up. What do you do for the Chinese New Year? what is supposed to happen. Same thing
Right.
for any other, cultural or ethnic holiday. So, I mean, I just think that instead of using this as an opportunity to make fun of, this can be an opportunity for us to say, okay, fine. You want to celebrate Juneteenth? You serious about it?
Right.
We're gonna have this celebration. We're gonna work together to celebrate, but then some other stuff has to come afterwards. And that's
Right.
why I think it's the missed opportunity. That's why
Agreed.
sometimes when it comes down to Black Twitter, I just be like, come on, yo.
They
Come
just want to
on,
be
come on,
mad.
stop playing.
Some
Stop playing
folks
with
just
that
want to
BS.
be mad, Yeah.
You just want to put people on blast. And
it
personally,
makes
I'm
for
too
good
old for
comedy.
that.
It makes
Tired
for a
of that
good
shit.
laugh. It makes for a good laugh in the moment. It makes for
Yeah.
good follow.
Like, look at this, look at that. I mean, look, race
Yeah, it
relations
makes
in
for
this
good
country.
impressions. Yeah, it
Come on.
makes
And
for good
Shaquay,
social
you and I
media
know race relations in this country is so dire. We're at such a critical point. We don't have, we shouldn't be making mockery or laughing at any of this stuff. We shouldn't be doing it at the end of the day, because guess what? Race relations, the relationship between Black and white in this country is so corrupted, so tainted, that we all are suffering from it, both Black and white people. We have yet to really have, and we're getting, I truly believe we're getting there, but we in 2022 don't need to continue to make fun of the dysfunctional relationship between these two groups of people.
Correct.
We just don't have the liberty, we don't have the time to make fun of that stuff.
Absolutely correct. You're
We
right.
just don't have it.
Right. Because the impending feeling of a race war was very real.
Very real.
Between 2016 and 2020. Right.
It's the race
And
war.
it still is. And
The
it still is.
ongoing legislative and policy war that is being waged on Black people in this country, right? The cultural war that is being waged on Black people by white people in this country. We can't make mockery of this stuff, man.
And
This
for
stuff is
whatever
so
reason,
real.
white
And
people
we
feel like there's a
tested
cultural
bullshit
war
on our children.
on them.
I don't care about who put it, how you prepare a potato salad. I don't. That's how you do it, man. I'm looking at the bigger picture.
I
like,
agree.
my son going to have to grow up in a world where, once again, white supremacy is the order of the day.
Or that in that there just is so much divisiveness that there's racial supremacy across the spectrum.
Right.
And there's not this tempered agreement, understanding, and embrace of full equity.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, Shaquaya, I appreciate your time with us today.
Wish I could stay longer, bro.
I know I got you, but I appreciate your time with us today. God willing, we will reconnect with you next week. But thank you so much, and always being so good for the culture. And we look forward to talking to you soon.
Same.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, we're going to go back into the live, into the stream that we had started earlier today. Again, we're going to discuss the 30th anniversary of the Rodney King verdict and the aftermath of that verdict. We're going to show you some footage of what was said and what was discussed today in Los Angeles as the mayor of Los Angeles and community leaders came together to acknowledge this pivotal moment, not just in LA history, but in this country. So we'll have that up next. And then later we check in with entrepreneur and Air Force veteran Tamika Peoples to talk about her work of bridging the gap in manufacturing for black designers. We'll have that conversation. So stay with us. A lot to get to in the next hour of The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. We just wanted to, I wanted to share with you some of the footage and the stream that we have been collecting all day as Black Star Network has been on the ground in Los Angeles for a number of activities as the city of Los Angeles commemorates the 30 years since the verdict of Rodney King. This was back in 1992, folks, where in that 30-year time span, and I can just, I remember it so vividly when I was a little young boy, rather, hearing about the verdict of those police officers, but then also seeing the video, that little grainy video of Rodney King being beaten on the side of a highway, and just feeling like I had to keep asking myself, is this real? Is this really, really happening? To see that video and then to see that none of those officers were sent to prison. To see that video and to see that Rodney King, in that moment, for those minutes that he was beaten, and that video was shown around the world, he never was the same. That was one of the, I think, one of the big video cases, big cases that where there was video footage of brutality. I mean, we've seen this before. Of course, we've seen it during the civil rights movement, but we just never seen it the way that we saw it back on April the 29th, 1992. It was horrifying. It was a game changer. And, I think each and every one of us who are of age, we could probably remember exactly where we were when that verdict was read. We could probably remember when the first time that we saw that video. And as a result of that horrific incident, the riots came. And we saw one of the video footages that I saw that really I will never forget, was the trucker. And I think his name was Reginald, if I'm not mistaken. And please, y'all can definitely tell me his last name. But this trucker was pulled out of his truck by two men, beaten. They beat him. Then they took a brick and threw it at his head. And I remember just watching that. And they were like excited about that. They were laughing, and I think the helicopter camera kind of, was going, just was over top of them, and they were looking at the helicopter camera and they were like, yeah, we got this white trucker. And I remember thinking to myself, like, yeah, I was upset about Rodney King, but I was hurt as well about seeing this trucker getting beat down like this. Reginald Denny, thank you so much, Mike V. Reginald Denny. I felt bad for the trucker like I felt for Rodney King. So I think that we, 30 years later, we're looking at where we are in this country. There's so many things that came out of that moment, whether you're talking about the actual beating of Rodney King or whether you're talking about the aftermath of the verdict. There's so many things at that moment. I also remember that there have been a number of documentaries and films that have been done about Los Angeles afterwards. But they said that the cost that the riots and I'm gonna be honest with you folks, I don't know whether it was a riot or whether it was an uprising. I don't know. I think if you talk to different people, they will say it's an uprising. If you talk to some other people, they might say it's a riot. I don't know. So we're just going to say, and I just out of respect for everyone, just to say that the aftermath, I was watching this film, this documentary, and it was saying that the aftermath cost $1 billion. I was like, whoa, $1 billion to this city. Now, as much as there was all of that pain, we also saw on the other side of the aftermath where those brothers and sisters who are part of the street organizations, they started to come together. The movie Straight Outta Compton, if y'all remember that movie, there was that part in the movie where they showed the rags of blue and red tied up. And then it was, during the riots, right? During the aftermath. And it was like, out of darkness came the light of unity for both Bloods and Crips. Out of darkness came a new understanding of race relations. And I it's so unfortunate that we have these big moments in our history, in our journey. And then 30 years later, we've made some gains, we've made some strides, but then some things still stay the same. We still have a lot of work to do, folks. We have a lot of work to do. So I wanted to we wanted to just share with you what was said today as community leaders, as city officials like the mayor and others came together to acknowledge this day. Check this out.
Please. I need all the photographers to take a step back. The press conference is about to start. I need all the photographers to take a knee and do not get in the way of the cameras, please. Is everyone ready? Okay, everyone ready? I'm Najee Ali, Community Relations Ambassador for Operation Hope. 30 years ago on this date, our city went through the worst crisis and one of the darkest days in our lifetime. But 30 years later, I am proud to say we stand here united as one city. 30 years ago, if someone had told me that the family of Rodney King, the family of LaTosha Hollins would be standing here in unity with the Korean American leaders, with Mayor Garcetti, with Chief Woodyard from the LAPD, with Congresswoman Karen Bass, in unity, I would not have believed it. But thanks to the leadership that we have in this city, 30 years later,
things are much better because we talk about the bad things that happened 30 years ago, but I say, let's talk about the good things. The good things is that we had several leaders and nonprofits that were born out of the civil unrest, such as Community Build, now led by Robert Salcedo. We also have a group called the Community Coalition that was co-founded by Sylvia Castillo and a young activist named Karen Bass, who's now a congresswoman. We also have someone who 30 years ago, no one knew who he was. But now, 30 years later, it is without question, he is one of this country's young top business leaders in the financial world as well as the nonprofit world. So 30 years ago was the birth of Operation Hope and John Hope Bryant, who 30 years later has brought us all together on this important day, this important tour. So thank you, John Hope Bryant.
God is good, isn't he? Yeah. You cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. It's a scientific fact. The Bible also suggests, be hot or be cold. If you're lukewarm, I'll spat you out. Translation, even God doesn't like mediocrity. There's nothing mediocre about this day. There's nothing light about what we did this morning. It's heavy. It's heavy with responsibility, with accountability. And you saw on that bus this morning, blacks and whites and rich and poor and Korean and Chinese and Latino. You had Indian. You have all cultures and all really professions, community, government, the private sector working together, because we realize today something we did not truly understand in 1992. We are better together. Rodney King's daughter is with us today. You'll hear from her. She was on the bus this morning. I remember one thing that Rodney King said, and it really is in the spirit of Sweet Alice Harris, who's here to my right, who hasn't aged in 30 years. Parents of Watts. Something that Mr. Rodney King said then was, can we all get along?
Yeah, that's right.
Can we all get along? I think we've proven today, as you look at this tapestry of Los Angeles, that this is a role model example for the entire country, and arguably with what's going on in the world today, for the entire world, that we are one people. We are one race. We are in one place. That is this place, and we must make it better. And what you've seen after the Rodney King riots of 1992, in the 30 years since, when Mayor Tom Bradley had a vision, but couldn't pull it off by himself, so he brought the private sector in and got the private sector to invest in an inner city. We take this for granted now. I'm going to say this slowly. To invest billions of dollars in an inner city neighborhood. Yeah. And look at it now. Thriving. Yep. No, that deserves some applause. Yeah. Billions of dollars. Not through a handout, not through charity, but by adding the GDP, taxes, income and opportunity, and jobs for all of this community. Now, Mayor Bradley was an international leader, but we have an international leader right here in Los Angeles. It's our mayor. He speaks Spanish. He also speaks black. Some of you will realize what I'm talking about later. I've known him for a very long time. He is actually a better leader than I am for reasons that is a bit of a private joke. But I moved to Atlanta. I love it. I love the city. This is still me. I have offices throughout the city. But I couldn't organize like he could organize. I couldn't do what he could do. He brought us all together from all groups, and he made us all feel comfortable. Him and Karen Bass, Congresswoman Karen Bass, who I just saw in D.C., are two shining lights for not only the city, but for our world. I'm honored to say and welcome today that we're proud to have on the 30th anniversary of the healing of our community. My friend is Mayor, Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, brother. All right. Let's give it up for John Hope Bryant, my brother. I want to thank you for the work that you do, John. I want to thank you for who you are. And I want to thank you for 3 decades of friendship. You have taken a fire and put broken pieces into it to forge tools out of that heat to rebuild our city and our nation. The idea of civil rights on top of civil rights. Give it up one more time for John Hope Bryant and thank him for bringing us together. This won't be my shortest speech, but it'll be one of my last ones you ever hear. So whether you're across the street or right here, I hope you'll indulge me because I actually spent some time this morning writing it myself because of what this moment is about. My father is across the street here in this hallowed ground in a community blocks from where he grew up, 12 blocks from a school which bears my family's name, the Gil Garcetti Learning Complex. We know how important this intersection is and the people that are here. So let me start by thanking them, and hopefully you can hear my words because they are important to thank these folks. First, Najee Ali, I want to thank you for helping organize this as well, the way you have empowered Angelenos to be here. Congresswoman Karen Bass, a friend, a mentor, a light in this city and throughout this country. We are lucky to see her leadership and to witness her courage every single day and her optimism at a moment that we need it. Please give her a round of applause and thank her as well.
Our next mayor.
Capri Maddox, I want to thank, who heads up our new Department of Civil Rights, of Equity and Human Rights. And I want to thank Laura King, and I also want to thank Shanice Harlins-Kilgore. Both of them embody the pain and the promise of 2 families that have suffered, but that took that suffering and made it into something special. I want to thank Haken Im, who is a dear friend and our president and founder of Faith and Community Empowerment, who continues to bring the Korean American community together with all communities. Please give her a round of applause and thank her as well. And I know when you start, there's probably 100 more people, but I'm just going to do one more, which is our our deputy chief. I almost promoted you with an extra star there, but it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. But Deputy Chief Gerald Woodyard, who heads up our South Bureau, he embodies how far we've come, but more than that, he embodies the character and the courage of our peace guardians on our streets. Thank you for your presence, and please give him a round of applause as well. I'd like to start first in remembering here those who are not with us, though. 63 souls, at least, that we know of, who lost their life in the violence of 1992, and so many before and who have come after who have lost their life. If we can start with a moment of silence, remembering them because the pain for their families has never, ever gone away. Thank you. It's been 3 decades since the 4 police officers who brutally beat Rodney King were acquitted and a city erupted. Since the trauma of that time, 30 years have passed. Think about that. Children have been born. Babies are now graduates and leaders. A city has survived and changed. In many ways, you can see the brave and bold articulations of an LA you never want to bet against. But in other places, we still see a city still broken and broke. We meet today here at the intersection of Florence and Normandy. In 1992, this wasn't just an intersection of 2 streets. It was an intersection of brutality and hopelessness, an intersection of racism and poverty, an intersection of violence and suffering. And in the 3 decades since that violence erupted here, since the dozens of lives that we saw lost, a spark that led to $1 billion in damage, businesses that went up in smoke, that destruction that was lit, a frustration that boiled over into our neighborhoods, the fear that closed us off from one another, and thousands more people who were injured, and 3 million plus people whose lives were changed forever 30 years ago. Now, to some of us who lived through that moment, and certainly to a new generation, that might seem like a long, long time ago. The events that we commemorate today might seem like distant things in our rearview mirror. But to the families who lost someone, to the children of business owners who still haven't slept a single good night since that, to the communities that have moved on without being moved up, the anger and the grief that exploded 30 years ago are still very real and present in trauma here today. Whether it's because of the racial injustice and prejudice, the deep-rooted inequities that still persist, whether it's the struggles of a small business owner just to stay afloat in the midst of a pandemic and more, we know that people in this city are feeling insecure about their future, cut off from opportunity, and perhaps cut off too often from one another. A recent survey from Loyola Marymount, you might have heard it across the street, I was going to cite it first, that's been conducted every 5 years since 1997, showed that 68% of Angelenos thought it likely or somewhat likely that we'd see another wave of riots in the next 5 years. That's an increase since the last survey, the highest percentage since the late 1990s. But with all the suffering we've gone through, that's not hard to understand, but it is the responsibility of leaders, the responsibility of leadership to awaken our sometimes slumbering hope, to resurrect the renewal of our deepest dreams, to manifest the material gains we must realize if we are to bring about a just city and a just chapter. You see, in the face of history, I choose not to leave, but to learn. Not to live with a corrosive fear, but to lean into an abundant hope that we can see in the people around us. And I know it's tough because we live in an age where one voice tries to be louder than all the rest. I wrote that before this. Where 100% of us want 100% of what we want, and we want it now. And I love impatience. That's a good thing. But any of us who have struggled for racial justice, economic opportunity, know that we need patience and persistence, hard work and tough conversations, and that progress comes not only from a raised fist, but also from an open hand. So let me, as your mayor, present a case for that optimism here today, because I see it all around me. I see it right here manifest in this coalition, in the folks who turned up here today who could have just let this date pass. I see it in this press telling the story of 30 years, the courage you showed 30 years ago at this intersection, and the hard and sometimes slow but steady work that Angelenos have done over the last 3 decades to better understand each other is what we bear witness to today. This has been happening in quiet conversations, in acts of solidarity with Korean Americans showing up to march against police brutality, Black Angelenos standing up when AAPI community is attacked, in the new models of community safety that we have not only in the Los Angeles Police Department, but from former gang members and interventionists who step between the bullets and the guns, who breathe hope back into our communities every single day. I see it in the mental health counselors, the domestic violence counselors. I see it in people who have never given up and who want to co-own this next chapter. I see it in a city that increasingly understands, like Operation Hope, how fundamental economic opportunity is to this answer. That's why it was here that we became the largest city in America to raise the minimum wage and reduce poverty by 27%. Make community college free and hire people coming out of prison, to make sure that we boosted Black incomes by 44%, brown incomes by 43%, way above the national average over the last 8 years. Putting billions of dollars into investment right here where this happened, so that we can see Destination Crenshaw, a place that feeds and teaches, a place where we can see a new light rail line come up and 2 more here, so that this community can benefit from the jobs, can benefit from the commutes, can benefit from the environment that we are building around us. You see, that's some real talk. That's not just protest. That's not just speaking out. It's showing up. And that ain't a mayor doing that. That is a community doing that. These are leaders together, because you don't have to have a title to be a leader. You just have to pick up a broom. You just have to hand out a sandwich. You just have to start a conversation. It starts where we are. And then second, it moves to where we aren't. By crossing a bridge, by listening to a language we might not understand as well, by listening to a perspective we might not agree with today, but by doing that hard work of compromise and comedy, not comedy, what we've always done and what we've never done. So in conclusion, let me say this. It ends this journey when we build the city of tomorrow, a city where we all belong and believe again, where we bring peace and defeat violence, where we have a shared purpose to end houselessness and address mental health, where we graduate leaders from every zip code and see ourselves mirrored in every aspect of our great city. And we must do what we have never done. And this is my message to Los Angeles. Make sure we treat our trauma because it still persists.
Yes, right.
The trauma persists in our bodies. The families who lost someone, the folks who witnessed what we saw, we must treat the trauma in order to move past it. 30 years on, in this intersection and every intersection, and with every intersection, we have the opportunity to be prophets of peace and to be makers of this great city. So in the words of the former LA poet laureate, Luis Rodriguez, when he once wrote, "Oh, bloom, you trampled flower, come alive as you once tried to do from the ashes." That is more than our legacy. It is our calling, it is our mission, and if we get it right, it is our destiny. Thank you. And I'll come back for Spanish.
Folks, that was just some of the words and remarks given by John Hope Bryant and the mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti. I would highly encourage you that if you haven't had a chance to take a look at the live stream, that you check us out at blackstarnetwork.com. You can see the stream of all that has happened from that bus tour that was given by, hosted by Community Build and Mr. John Hope Bryant himself, as well as all of the speakers that were present today, including Representative Karen Bass, who is running for mayor of Los Angeles, and other community leaders. Definitely check out blackstarnetwork.com to see the full stream. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come back, we're going to check in with Miss Tamika Peoples, an Air Force veteran who is doing the great work of bridging the gap in the manufacturing industry. Stay with us. The culture is coming up, is going to be right back here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr Carr, and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Rolling all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Like, wow, Rolling was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
You dig? It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
All right, folks, now it is time for us to highlight an entrepreneur that is looking to bridge the gap with a manufacturing company. We're talking about Air Force veteran Tamika Peoples, who is the founder of Seed to Shirt, which is an apparel company that's looking to use Black vendors to create Black-owned, a Black-owned, first women-owned apparel that we've seen. So I want to welcome to the airwaves of Black Star Network here to the culture, Miss Tamika Peoples. Tamika, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Hey. How you doing, brother? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Living the dream, brother. Living the dream.
Living the dream. I hear that. I'm living the dream too, Tamika. I am too. I'm doing a show for Black people on a Black network. So, you know what I mean? It don't get no better than that, right?
No better.
So first and foremost, again, thank you so much for your time with us today. Let's talk a little bit about your company, Seed to Shirt. This is an apparel company, and you're on I would say you're on a quest to make sure that Black women get their due in the manufacturing industry. Talk to us a little bit about this effort.
Yeah. So Seed to Shirt, we started back in 2018. We're a vertically integrated apparel production company where we produce blank t-shirt apparel and provide branding, accessories, and services on those shirts all the way through a Black value chain. And we do that from seed to shirt. So what I mean by that is we're sourcing cotton that's coming from Black cotton farmers in Africa and in the U.S. We're working on our U.S. piece. We produce our entire value chain in Africa that comes here to us in the U.S. And we partner with an amazing print fulfillment company, a Black woman-owned print fulfillment company. She prints it in order to provide branding services on our blank apparel line. We started this company because, quite honestly, we couldn't find a shirt, a blank t-shirt, if you will, that was made in this way. And we were looking to brand ourselves in very particular ways, like most companies are, and couldn't find it. So we decided to create it. So we've been on this journey for a few years, finally got our few batches in and even more coming. And we're just looking to change the game in apparel production. I just couldn't see a space where, cotton, one of the most abundant resources, highly produced by Black people. And obviously off of our backs, we built this empire called the United States with that commodity and many more. And to not have a seat at that table in that entire vertical chain. So we created that. And we're really happy about the work that the team is doing around a bunch of different areas, but that's the basis of what Seed to Shirt is and what we do.
So y'all make sure we go down the line, because folks are might be thinking to themselves like, wait a minute, how far, how vast is it? Take a look at this, folks. Look at the website for Seed to Shirt. You're talking about black cotton, black production, black shipping, black women print fulfillment partner. I mean, take a look at this production video, folks. This is black people doing black things in a very beautiful black way.
That's right. That's right. And we've always done this. I mean,
Right.
this is nothing new for us in our community. We were the largest cultivators of civilizations. You know, we know who we are, right? We know what's the value that cotton brings. It's just we've never kind of seen it brought together in this way. You know, we understand that brands and corporations, you know, they're looking to, of course, have a shirt, have some good value, but they also are looking for fulfillment services and things that can help them extend their brand in a way that represents the culture and builds a community, but also can have, you know, as you see behind me, things printed on it. Which is why we were so intentional about how we built Seed to Shirt. It took a long time, you know, to identify where we could source the cotton, how we could source the cotton. There's abundance of cotton being produced, certainly in Africa, which is where we have most of our value chain done at. But most of it is extracted, meaning it's not refined in Africa, you know, and these are the things that we're trying to bridge with Seed to Shirt. You know, we are one people in the US and Africa, wherever we exist on this globe, and we need to be doing business and doing trade and building institution with each other. And so for us, that was a no-brainer, right? So to give people a good sense of the process, we source our cotton in West Africa, Burkina Faso region. We refine that cotton in East Africa, which happens in Uganda, in that region where there's some ability to do that. And then we do batch production, which you saw a little bit of that video, in Kenya. And then that product comes to us here I'm speaking to you at our headquarters in California, and there we do some level of storage and fulfillment out of Georgia. So we were, again, it was intentionally built to have the entire value chain be Black people, Black produced all the way through. We went a step further. I like to share a little bit of that step further. When we think about cotton, it's one of the most highly used resources, supports 355 million livelihoods across the world, across the globe. And our cotton farmers in Africa who are doing traditional, what we would call traditional cotton, as well as organic cotton, we were seeing some real similarities between the challenges that they were facing with tools, resources, soil health, and other things that our Black cotton farmers here were facing in the US. So we developed what we call a farmer enrichment program that looks to, one, give back and enrich those farmers' lives, do things centered around soil health, provide tools and resources. We realized that 58% of those cotton farmers were women. So we have an entire farmer enrichment program that is dedicated to giving back and supporting our brothers and sisters who we source the cotton from. So that's a percentage of every sale goes to that program. We're intentional about building community. We're intentional about building institutions and production value chains that represent the Black community and Black people globally, because we are one people.
Tamika, I'm just listening to you, sis, and I'm you know, people are checking in about this. One person asked, Taylor said, "Are all your shirts made of cotton? There are other natural fibers."
Of course there are. Yes, no, that's a beautiful question. We started with cotton, 100% cotton, 100% organic cotton. There are opportunities, again, when you build your own value chain. And of course, we're looking at how do we do this vertically integrated model here in the US, and we're working on it. Can't drop too many jewels there, but I will say that cotton was the start. And yes, there are many other natural fibers. There are even wovens and knits that you can get into. We're exploring that and looking to bring different varying line options to market. You can imagine a T-shirt. Most people are seeing T-shirts at $4 or $5 a unit. You see the giants in the space like a Gilding, a Hanes, a Bella Canvas. I would just submit to you that yes, we started with this kind of fast fashion space because we felt like that was one, the right point of entry, two, something that we can bring to market and have that whole ecosystem completed. But there are opportunities in other production areas, and we want to shift the perception of fast, cheap, and quick, and also being able to exchange this value for value, understanding why you're seeing these differences in prices and what whose value chain speaks to the value of your community,
right,
and builds the value of your community. Those are the things that we are striving to build with Seed to Shirt, with our relationships, our partnerships, and of course our product line.
Yeah. So I mean, look, this is absolutely fascinating. You know what I mean, Sister Tamika, because I know that at Morgan State University, for example, and other HBCUs, they talk about the importance of textile, and they're talking about fashion. And there is we know that there's a whole generation of young folks that are looking to get into this space, but they're looking at it from, I guess, just from the consumer side of it versus the actual production side of it. So my question is, how do you get the next generation of designers, the next generation of would-be manufacturers to see that, look, we need to have representation on the manufacturing side and not just on the design side?
Well, that's a great question. I honestly think that the quickest way to do that is to take fashion and unpack where that material comes from, and all the different ethos that have to happen in order for you to have this beautiful, let's say, wax print or woven and knit shirt. And I think, our fashion schools who are doing that, showing, from farm to fashion, there's some efforts to show this connectivity. There was this era in the U.S. where we unfortunately we lost that because there was this desire to scale, and there are policies and things that happened in the 80s, like NAFTA and others, that shifted a lot of things overseas, and even thinking about bringing manufacturing back is such a costly endeavor. To think about doing that in the U.S., but there are ways to do it small and figure out how we use our campuses. You mentioned HBCUs, how we use our campuses to have small, batch programs that address the other pieces of the production value chain that actually is the fashion industrial complex, as we would call it, right?
The fashion industrial complex. Is that what y'all call it?
No. I just
say,
honestly
like,
threw that out there. But if you think about it, it's an entire industry, and it's
right.
Spinners and knitters and weavers, seamstress. In order to get, you have to take that raw commodity and you have to do some things with it, like clean it for cotton, which would be ginning. You have to. So it is an industrial complex. Let's be honest. We get to see, the catwalks and the folks on the runway and, people with beautifully designed garments, but it starts in the field somewhere.
So
commodity.
And what are the, you talk about that, you talk about cotton. Are you talking about cotton from American fields or where exactly?
Got you. I did describe that earlier. We started in Africa because of the value, going through the levels of that value chain from a startup perspective was going to be significantly cost prohibitive. Now we have direct relationships with Black cotton farmers across the Southeast region and are working at building that model vertically to have something like that here in the U.S. But again, family, with these things come costs. Manufacturing is just not an overnight, let me snap my fingers and have a bunch of people in and get some cotton and go. No. there's a lot of things that has to go into that. So our team is working very diligently with identifying that engineering model, what we have to have in place. We do have, again, as we mentioned, we're working on current cotton farmers, which we know that Black cotton farmers are less than 1% of the U.S. agricultural sector.
Wait a minute, hold on, Sister Tamika. I wanted you to put that away. I know, sis. I know, because you're dropping some jewels. So I want to make sure that people understand the complexity and the landscape of this industry.
Yes,
you said that Black cotton farmers or Black cotton manufacturers?
Or
1%?
Literally, probably less than 1% of the cotton producers of the U.S.
Black people.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes, sir. And that data is, pulled and derived from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I'm a data head, so sorry, I don't mean to come at the team with all these raw numbers. But if you just look at the data,
that's what we know. No. Please don't apologize. I want you to bring out the raw numbers, because those numbers give us a snapshot or give us some picture of what we're looking at, right? And I think for a lot of our watchers, I mean, look, highly intelligent people, they want to know what the raw numbers is. I want to know what those numbers are, because that's something to give us as a reference point for how much work we need to do, especially in this industry. You know what I mean? To come to be able to speak to a Black woman who is not talking about, hey, I sell t-shirts. No, I make t-shirts. You know what I'm saying? I'm making clothes, and I'm doing it with Black cotton farmers. I'm doing it at home and across the waters in the motherland. I'm doing it by connecting with other Black women. That's powerful.
Yes, sir.
That's beyond powerful. And I think that, to your point and to the work that you're doing, Sister Tamika, like, you really are creating a model by which I think a lot of people can start to duplicate, in some way, shape, or form. But to have a Black woman in the space, or a Black person in the space of manufacturing cotton and then putting it out there, I can only imagine. It's probably like 6 of y'all.
It's a limited space, but I think there are success leaves clues, right? So when we first started this journey with Seed to Shirt, as I mentioned, you're trying to look for doesn't exist. Let's not recreate the real, right? Let's figure it out. And I'm a student of our history. So there is in North Carolina, in Concord, North Carolina, there was a vertically integrated manufacturing company started by a formerly enslaved African, Mr. Warren C. Coleman. And I'm sharing this because I know we're in the culture, right? We're talking mostly to our people. We want this knowledge, right? So Warren C. Coleman, back in the 1800s, started the Warren C. Coleman textile manufacturing facility. Well, one, because our farmers couldn't take their cotton to the white gin owners back then, right? Our seamstresses weren't being hired. In fact, that's some of the reasons why they started unions. Let's unionize, not to hire these free slaves, right? These free formerly enslaved people, right? And so Warren C. Coleman, in town of Concord, North Carolina, and please, I encourage you all to look him up. That facility existed, over 3,500 square foot facility, where the cotton was coming in, Black seamstress. He had a training facility on the 3rd floor, you name it. Again, we're creators. We know how to do this. It's in our blood. It's in our DNA. Our brothers and sisters in Africa doing the same thing. And so when you think about, can it be done? The answer to that is yes. How does it get done? It's going to take, the community.
Let me ask you. Sister Tamika, I'm wondering, as you're talking about this history, and again, I appreciate you for being a historian of design, of manufacturing. But do you think that because cotton was the product of us when we were enslaved, right? When our ancestors were enslaved, that is one of the big factors as to why Black people are not getting, like, subconsciously. Now, I'm not saying consciously, like we're saying, oh, here come cotton, and we just don't want to get involved. But subconsciously, cotton became like a symbol of our oppression.
Yes. Let me.
Do you think that? Do you think that has anything to do with like it's just like
Absolutely.
psychologically, like when we look at cotton, like you know, anything relating to picking cotton, talking about cotton, we just all you know automatically revert back to slavery, and so therefore we kind of like, no, I don't want to be involved. I mean, I might be grasping straws here, but I'm just wondering, is that
No, absolutely. You were not grasping those straws. Understand, you know, you ain't missing no beats here when it comes to that. I will tell you, when I first started this, and whenever I see cotton in this raw form, which I keep it very close to me because I'm trying to break down these mental, subconscious, DNA traumatic relationship we have when we see cotton. But that same visceral reaction does not happen when we put on our clothes every morning, or we lay in our beds every night, or when we take a shower and dry off with that beautiful towel. We don't have that same visceral reaction. So we know that's DNA, that's trauma, right? And yes, I do think that it has something to do with it. But as Dr. Carr would say, as Professor Hunter would say, we need to remember and we need to heal these barriers or this trauma that we are living with as potentially formerly enslaved, or those who have gone through this experience. Because I will tell you that this sector, in these industry silos, transforming raw commodity, being able to produce something, there is where our survival, our freedom, and where kind of the capital or the potential lies. And so we do, I think, as a people, yes, we need to, I shouldn't say get over that, but deal with that trauma, and then understand how we can have, if you're interested in it, begin to think about the cognitive dissonance you're going to have initially until you have healing and have reconciliation around the commodity. But I will tell you, it's still, our brothers and sisters who are still farming will tell you there's some cash crops out there, and cotton and the wheats and the soybeans and the value addition that you do to these products. That's where the real value and the income is. I would tell you, though, I know we're probably short on time here, but we took that a step further. We became a certified organic cotton broker, and we have moved thousands of pounds of cotton from West Africa into the U.S. manufacturing sector.
Wow!
We're not letting any of these industries and these corporations be the only ones that represent us in this space. And again, with these earnings, what do we do with that? We build our people, we build our communities, we build more programs, we build more connections. It's not a game for us. And I appreciate the opportunity to share what Seed to Shirt is doing, what we're working on, and how we're doing it.
Right. And you know what? I mean, just that, to that point, Sister Tamika, just the fact that that you got all of this happening, and then you still got to break down the barriers personally. And I always like to ask, when people are doing innovative things, when they're doing groundbreaking things, how are you holding up? Because this is sis, this is not easy. You're breaking new ground, you're bridging the gap because of the history, and then of course because of modern technology and everything. But how are you holding up, considering that you're working in this space with very few of us around you? You're working in this space, you're trying to, you're extending the arm across the waters. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
Good.
Brother, and thank you for asking. And what I will say to you is, I don't let the 1% drive how we should be responding to our community.
Awesome.
When I do my work, when I show up every day in our spaces, I do see us, because you understand, we steward the land. We are the seamstress.
Yes,
we
ma'am.
are the, just because that 90% of where we sit at in the industry, I get to see us every day. I am engaging with my farmers. I am engaging with my seamsters. I have a very strong network, and everything else I filter out because they don't define who I am and what our ancestors' DNA run through my blood. So I am very well, and my strength and my spirit is always renewed in conversations and relations like this, and then the rest I tune out because we got work to do.
We got a lot of work to do. All right, so Sister Tamika, we got a couple of moments left, and I am just so happy that we had an opportunity to chit-chat a little bit. The community, folks across this country are tuned in and watching. What do you want them to know? What can they do? How can they help? Put it out there. Put out what your call to action right now.
My call to action is go to Seed to Shirt. You can support us by purchasing a shirt. You can support us by donating directly even to our farmer enrichment program, or you can lean in. We're going to start opening up volunteer opportunities to help us build this because we need our entire community. So you can find us everywhere at Seed to Shirt, and we look forward to connecting.
Sister Tamika Peoples, first and foremost, it would be understatement to say thank you for being so good for the culture, because you are so much ingrained in the culture, and you are showing us. You are showing us how it's supposed to be done. But I'm just so happy and proud of you, sis, that you're taking all that you learned, and you're just taking a lot on you and saying, you know what, I'm going to do it for us, and I'm going to create a legacy for my children and for my children's children and for everybody else's children. And I'm going to open up some doors. So I thank you so much for the great work that you're doing in bridging the gap, not just in manufacturing, but bridging the gap in Black America and then and the continent. You know what I mean? That's a huge gap to bridge. And so, putting in that work, we really appreciate you for doing that. Folks, Sister Tamika Peoples, she serves as the founder, the managing director, the CEO of Seed to Shirt. Make sure, Keenan, let's put that website right back up, brother, for Seed to Shirt. There it is right there, that beautiful website showing you how it's done. From the seed all the way to the shirt. And Sister Tamika, y'all, now, I meant to ask you this earlier. We know you're putting out your own product line, but do you do other people's? If somebody say, hey, I got some ideas for a fashion design, will you produce?
Say less. Absolutely. First, I want to just say thank you first and foremost to the Black Star Network. I am, humbly honored to be in this space with you and the team. And thank you, Brother Roland, for what you have built. Absolutely. This is what we need. I want to kind of give homage here to the community that I'm in, Nubia and Narrative and Karen Hunter and Dr. Professor Carr. I mean, all of these people shape how we do this work and how we remember and how we stay grounded in our framework of who we are to each other. Now, with respect to can folks use our shirts, we are actually working on an app to be a Black fulfillment service provider. I will drop more information about that, but absolutely, we have done campaigns with folks, Black artists, the We Represent Us campaign. Some of these shirts are represented by them. We are very open to supporting design and other opportunities on folks' line, because we do understand, right? We're here to be the shirt behind your brand.
There it is. Love it. Sister Tamika, I love it. I truly appreciate you. Sister Tamika Peoples, thank you so much, sis, for being on The Culture. Thank you so much for being good for the culture. And, as other things come up, as other announcements that need to be made, please consider coming back on to join us to make those announcements, because I'm sure many folks would love to hear what you got to say and all of the great things that you're working on. So thank you.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for the culture. We'll see y'all soon.
Absolutely. There it is, folks. Seed to Shirt. Make sure y'all check them out online. And if you are a designer, upcoming designer, or you want to learn about manufacturing, make sure you check them out as well to get opportunities on how they can produce your goods and or to get you involved in the industry. Man, that's a great way to end the week. That is an awesome way to end the week. Folks, look, We've done a lot of great conversations this week. Y'all make sure y'all tune into Black Star Network, because I mean, we constantly streaming. Big shout out to my man Keenan, who has been working like crazy over these past few days, making sure that we are up to date on all of our streams from all of these different activities, from everything that's been happening in LA today to everything that's been happening. I mean, if you see a stream, folks, just know that we got one brother that is making things happen. So big shout out to Keenan and to the whole team that continues to put out this content to make sure that we're doing the work that we need to do, and to make sure that we sound good, that we look good, that we stay professional. And of course, big shout out to all of you for supporting us. That's why we appreciate each and every one of you. When we ask for your support, we're not asking for your support just to bore you or to ask you for your support just because we don't have nothing else to do. We're looking for all of those new viewers, all of those new followers. Support us, because this is a people-oriented operation right here, folks. This is unfiltered, unadulterated media, Black-owned media that needs to be supported. We're not getting all of the big names yet. Trust and believe, we're working on it. But right now, we can honestly say that from the very, very beginning, Black Star Network came and it was brought into existence because of you, because of the people. So go to our website right now. Check it out at blackstarnetwork.com. Support Black Star Network. And look, all of the great conversations that we've had, like Sister Tamika Peoples. Some of y'all still, Vince, I see you, man. I see you still asking about them Sister Sweet cupcakes. You still asking where your cupcakes. I hear you. But those are the type of conversations. We had D Chase early on, talking about Black artists and what the role of Black artists. So many of you are checking in. So I truly, truly appreciate y'all for supporting us, Black Star Network, and supporting the culture each and every day here on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, my time has been very, very well spent. I want to thank my team, Shannon, my producer, Shannon and Joel. I want to thank all of our culture crew members this week. And I certainly want to thank you. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered with Big Brother Ro, Uncle Ro, rolling with Ro. He's coming on at the 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong, stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, next week is National Teacher Appreciation Week. Yep, we got to thank our Black educators and our educators who are doing the great work for Black students. We're going to do our part here on the culture to support them, to show them love. So we're going to have that conversation next week and a whole lot more. So thank you for tuning in. And God willing, we'll see each other on Monday. And thank you for tuning in to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.